Greetings, ladies. Happy International Women's Day 2026. So, when we think of health, we often narrow it down, particularly when we're looking at female health, to reproductive issues. But health is really more than just reproductive health. Though we do not have as much breast cancer diagnosis in the community, we are 31% less likely to survive. When we do get diagnosed with breast cancer, we're often younger and tend to get diagnosed at stage 3 or stage 4 of cancer. And when we do get diagnosed, we often do not start treatment. And if we do choose to start treatment, we often don't continue treatment. And that's often because of trust issues that we have with the system, because of bad experiences. And sometimes we're just not listened to with our pain and how we would like to manage our health and well being. Now, the electromagnetic body is really just your aura. Your aura, your biofield, your electromagnetic field, same thing, different names. And your aura has layers to it. These layers are what we call subtle bodies. And then here in the middle, if you don't know, we have chakras, which are energy points. So it's the points on the body where our electricity, our energy is more concentrated. So electromagnetic physiology comes down to really simple things in order to understand it. The human body communicates either through electrical signaling, which is predominantly understood through the nervous system, or chemical signaling, which is understood through the endocrine system. Electrical charges create magnetic fields, and magnetic fields create electrical charges. All of your experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between, is because of our electromagnetic field, the energy we are emitting, what we are taking in, and what we are putting out. To understand this a little bit deeper, we have to look at our cells because we are cellular beings, and our whole body communicates because of loads of cells communicating with each other. And so the simplest way to really understand this is if we remember our periodic table when we were in school, the periodic table of elements. We are elemental beings, and all elements are charged particles that have come together to form structures. Sodium, potassium, copper, all of these things are charged particles and they make up our body. And so when we're thinking about feeding our body, we think, okay, I need more iron, I need potassium, I need sodium, or I need to reduce my sodium, I need to reduce my potassium, I need to manage my magnesium. That's just considering the elements we need to put into our body and just taking them on in a different form to fuel our body. And those elements come together to make chemicals. As we mentioned before, we are electrically charged, but we also communicate through chemical signaling. And these chemicals, if you remember again in school, chemical bonds, and you remember these structured bonds, are made up of these charged particles. In the body, chemicals are just hormones. The technical name for chemicals in the body are hormones. And cholesterol is a big player to our hormones. A lot of our hormones that we have, the hormones that we need in our body, are formed by cholesterol. So cortisol to start with. Cortisol is the stress hormone because it directly responds to stress. When you have stress, whether that be moving a house, going through a breakup, going through a divorce, having a really toxic argument with your parents or your sibling, or whatever the stressor might be, having a deadline at work, having to, get through an exam, cortisol is stimulated. You have the stressor, and that communicates with your brain. Your brain takes in that stressful information, and then that, by a series of events, normally through your hypothalamus and pituitary gland, ends up communicating to your body to produce cortisol. Studies show that Black women have higher levels of cortisol compared to white counterparts, and stressors such as poverty, discrimination, racial trauma, socioeconomical challenges, and systematic oppression all contribute to stress-induced cortisol levels. Stress-induced cortisol production can lead to cholesterol being invested in cortisol as opposed to it being invested in other hormones. And also cortisol itself, when it's produced in more amounts, can affect our hormone production. But what has this got to do with chakras and our energetic body? Well, your root chakra is your first chakra, and it's found at the base of your spine. And it's linked to survival, it's linked to security and safety. Think Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All of those needs that need to be met are all down and come into play by your root chakra. Your root chakra is then connected to your etheric body, which is the first layer of your aura. And this acts as a link between your physical body, the spiritual realm, and your soul. But what can also happen is when you have increased cortisol and you're in a pro-inflammatory response state, your progesterone and estrogen get increased, and this stimulates fibroid growth. Now, when you're healthy, fibroids are meant to be killed off by the body naturally. When you're in a state of inflammation, however, your body stops cell death for unhealthy cells, and then it actually stimulates growth of unhealthy cells, and that leads to the cell sometimes being more sensitive to hormones like progesterone. And so that cell, that unhealthy cell, i.e. the fibroid, starts to eat up more of the progesterone, and that therefore stimulates its growth. Your sacral chakra is your second point. It is the second chakra in your system, and it is linked to your emotional body, which is the second layer of your aura. And your emotional body and your sacral chakra are connected not just to your reproductive system, but also to your limbic system, which is your emotional brain center. Now, when we're looking at the solar plexus in itself is the lower chakra, but the throat chakra, which is a higher chakra, and the solar plexus actually can be looked at together, because together, both of them are connected to your gastrointestinal system. Now, the mental body is the third layer of your aura, and that's what's connected to your solar plexus. The causal body is your fifth layer and is linked to your throat chakra. Both the solar plexus and thyroid chakra are part of the GI system, and that's all about metabolism. It's all about us breaking things down, breaking down information, breaking down food, breaking down things that come from outside and get put within. When we have high levels of cortisol, it actually can inhibit TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. And so therefore, when we're stressed, it's affecting our thyroid hormones and therefore reducing our thyroid hormones. At the same time, when we are stressed, sometimes what can happen is our body then attacks itself, which is where we get autoimmune hyperthyroidism. And that leads to the increased stimulation of ACTH, which we looked at back when we were looking at the root chakra. And then that increases cortisol. So cortisol is then saying we need more glucose because we need more energy to be able to get through these circumstances and deal with these situations. But at the same time, your body is then becoming less sensitive to insulin. So any insulin that's being produced to try and break down this glucose, your body's not absorbing it the way it should be. It's not taking it in the way it should be. And that leads to higher blood sugars. And then that leads to an increase in you being insulin resistant, meaning your body is not actually doing anything with the insulin. It's not taking the insulin the way it should be. Now, when we're looking at the heart chakra, this is the fourth chakra and it's linked to the astral body and disease. And the astral body is linked to karmic patterns, past life and genetic information, and all your genetic diseases, it filters it into your consciousness through the heart and through the astral body. The heart chakra is located in the center of your chest, and it's all about love, compassion, relationships, and intimacy, non-sexual intimacy. And this layer connects the upper and the lower chakras. And if you consider the heart chakra is the space where all of our past life karmic patterns and the genetic information of those before us, the karma of those before us, the stresses of those before us that hasn't been transmuted, gets put into our body. It gets communicated by our body to let our body know we need to try and return back to a state of balance, to a state of homeostasis. That's how we get trauma and stress, leading to genetic changes and poor physical health. And so that's what brings us to inflammation and blood pressure, cardiovascular diseases. We've already explored that we are in a state of inflammation, and the body, when it's under stress, promotes inflammation to try and deal with the stress. But when you are under chronic stress and your body stays in that state for a long time, which it's not supposed to, that leads to inflammatory diseases being increased and the symptoms of those diseases being worse. And then your body starts to produce more cortisol and more adrenaline to try and deal with these stresses because it thinks we're under stress. We need more of this to help deal with this. And that leads to damage to your heart, inflammation to the heart, and that leads to heart attack and stroke being more prevalent. So stress, not just from our life and not from our experiences, but from the experiences of those before us, is what's manifesting in cardiovascular diseases being experienced at higher rates in our community. Furthermore, cholesterol, like we said before at the beginning, it produces cholesterol. Cholesterol produces cortisol, and aldosterone. And both of those are all about regulating the heart, regulating fluid balance, regulating blood pressure. And when you're chronically stressed and your body is now trying to regulate itself, cortisol and aldosterone work together to increase sodium retention, meaning it holds on to salt. It increases the blood volume because it's like we need to work harder. We need to push the heart. We are in a fight or flight state. And that puts us into a place of having high blood pressure. Now, the third eye is your sixth chakra connected to the sixth layer, which is your celestial body. And this is all about intuition and spiritual awareness. and it's how you are able to communicate with the spirit world and you're able to sense God's presence. The third eye and the pineal gland are the same thing. Same thing, different names. We have electromagnetic field, biofield, aura, same thing, different names. Third eye is the pineal gland. Pineal gland is the third eye. The circadian rhythm and diurnal cycles navigate the pineal gland. They are what decides how the pineal gland functions, and it's all about clocks, right? So the circadian rhythm is your internal biological clock that is based on the 24-hour clock, and it navigates and regulates sleep and wake cycles, hormones, and metabolism, and it's all stimulated by light and darkness. And your diurnal cycle is a reoccurring daily pattern that is navigated by the Earth's night and day cycle. And here we see this is how a lot of our hormones, some of which that we've discussed already, a lot of them are operating based on a clock. Certain times we have peaks of these hormones, certain times these hormones are at a lesser level, but Black women are more likely, to have shorter sleep and less restorative sleep, meaning we sleep for shorter hours and we are not sleeping in the way that our body's being restored. When we're not entering that state of rest, it means our body's not detoxifying. It means inflammation is staying increased, and it means we are not keeping in homeostasis. We are not in balance. It means our hormones are going to be off. All of those other things that we've discussed previously are going to be manifest. The crown chakra, our final chakra, is linked to our etheric template. It's connected to your head and your hair, and it's all about divine connection, awareness, and spiritual enlightenment. The crown chakra is connected primarily to your nervous system and your integumentary system, which is your skin, your hair, and your nails. Now, cholesterol in the body interacts with ultraviolet B rays. So UVB that comes from the sun interacts with our cholesterol in our body and produces vitamin D. That's how vitamin D is made. Cholesterol interacts with the sun. There's a chemical interaction between when cholesterol comes in contact with sunlight, vitamin D is produced. When you take vitamin D supplements, it does not reduce your cholesterol because vitamin D does not act on cholesterol. Cholesterol interacts with sunlight to produce vitamin D. And so you will see studies have found that vitamin D being increased by way of supplement does not change your cholesterol level. So it's not uncommon to have high cholesterol and low vitamin D. Vitamin D in your body does so much. It's all about parathyroid. It affects your parathyroid gland, your intestinal absorption and your intestine function, and even your pancreas. It affects your pancreas. So not having that relationship with the sun is affecting us in more ways than one. And stripping your body of the melanin is affecting you not just by way of saying you're destroying your outer appearance, but you're actually affecting your body's chemical reactive ability. Okay?